Hello friends and welcome back to the Dork Side. I'm the Dork in the Road, and today let's talk about whether or not the Kawasaki KLR 650 is a good first motorcycle. I'm the Dork in the Road and I want to be your internet riding buddy, so please consider subscribing. Most of you know that I have a 2022 Kawasaki KLR 650 Adventure. I've had it for a few months now, put almost 1,500 miles on it, done a few videos up to and including my 1,000-mile review video, which I will link for you. That's probably the most useful video if you're trying to get a little bit of background on my experience with that bike. But one question I get pretty often is, what do you think about the KLR for beginners, for a new rider? How do you think the KLR would do for someone who's looking for their first motorcycle? So I feel like I have a sort of unique perspective on this question, just because when I was searching for my first off-road bike, where I ultimately ended up buying a Honda CRF 250L, the KLR was a bike that I very strongly considered, and I decided against it. And I think the reasons that I decided against it were wrong. I really feel like I didn't give it enough of a chance because it was pretty much exactly what I was looking for, but I was scared of the seat height. The seat height intimidated me, and so I've come to realize since then that seat height is intimidating, seat height is a consideration, but it is not the end-all be-all, and it's the kind of thing where it's a lot scarier at first, but you can, as you build your skills and get a little bit better, it becomes less of a concern. It becomes almost a non-existent concern. You can grow into a bike that's a little tall for you if you're careful and, practice and use the right techniques as you're learning how to ride it. So I wish I hadn't written it off, I guess, which is one of the reasons why I'm making this video. I like to evaluate whether or not a bike is a good first motorcycle on two criteria. First category is it easy enough for a new rider, someone with limited experience, either a brand new rider or someone coming to off-road from street riding, to handle? And number two, is it a bike that's gonna last you a long time? Because there are some bikes that are great beginner bikes that you'll outgrow quickly. And so what's the value of that bike, even if it is a good beginner bike, over time? And so let's talk about both of those in terms of the KLR 650. And again, I'm talking about my third gen KLR, but aside from the fuel injection and the third gen being a little bit heavier, they mostly feel the same to ride based on the others that I've ridden in the past. My point is, what I'm saying should apply pretty closely to all the KLRs out there, all the 650s. The 250s are a different story. So the first question is it an easy enough bike for a new rider, a rider with limited experience, to handle? Are they gonna get in trouble, and are they gonna feel confident and comfortable on it? The answer to that question is yes, it is, with a few important caveats. I think that seat height is the biggest, most important consideration. If you're tall enough that you can get your feet down comfortably on a bike with a seat height as high as the KLR, then you're totally gonna be fine on it otherwise. If you're a little shorter, I'm 5'10", it's a little tall for me, but not really. I'm pretty comfortable on it at the height, so if you're around my height, maybe that's the cutoff. If you're a little shorter, you might be a little bit more uncomfortable on it. But if you're willing to accept that it's gonna be uncomfortable at first, but if you use the right techniques, you slide a cheek off, you understand that you're only gonna get one foot down, and ultimately learn that the best answer to putting your feet down is to not put your feet down. It's just to stay on the pegs and ride through things, and only put the feet down when you stop, when you have to stop. However, if that seat height is so intimidating that you're worried about it, that you don't feel confident, that you sit on the bike and you're worried constantly about getting your foot down, it might be too tall for you. Confidence is the most important skill when it comes to riding and off-road riding. And so if you can't see yourself being successful in spite of whatever obstacle you see, in this case seat height, then you probably won't be. You have to be able to envision being successful despite the thing that makes you nervous. So if you can see yourself being successful but understand it'll be tough, you're probably gonna be fine. If you can't see yourself being successful, you're gonna struggle on that bike while you learn. So that's my biggest consideration. For a new rider on the KLR, that seat height is very intimidating. And the other fairly intimidating thing about the KLR is it's pretty heavy. This third gen is 460 pounds. That's a lot heavier than a lot of other dual sports out there. I started on the CRF 250L. That was 320 pounds, and I thought that was heavy. CRF 300L, the new model, is 308 pounds. My DRZ is 317 pounds. So compared to those bikes, a KLR is pretty heavy. But compared to like an adventure bike, like my Africa Twin that I had was 505 pounds. The KLR is a little bit lighter. I actually find the KLR a lot easier to ride, handle, and move around in terms of weight than I did my Africa Twin or any other adventure bike that I've ridden. But for a beginner, for a new rider, that's a lot of motorcycle. It's heavy and it's tall. Heavy and tall is a bad combination for a new rider. It can be intimidating. So if you understand and can accept that it's a little bit tall and a little bit heavy, and you're comfortable-ish with that, or you could see yourself being comfortable, then otherwise the KLR is a great bike to start on because the power delivery is incredibly smooth and comforting. It is a very approachable power delivery. It is really, really hard to do something bad by accident on the KLR. It just has this really sort of grunty, they call it a tractor for a reason. You twist the throttle and it just goes ba-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, and it will just carry you up, around, and through whatever it is you're trying to get up, around, or through. The power comes on very smoothly and slowly, so it is really difficult to spin the rear tire. You're not going to do it by accident. And when learning to ride on gravel roads and more loose surfaces, it's kind of nice to not have a lot of horsepower and super quick twitchy throttle power delivery, because you're unlikely to spin the rear tire on something loose on accident or even on purpose. I've tried. So power delivery is good for a new rider. That's one of the things I like about it. It's one of the most unintimidating power deliveries I've ever experienced on any of the bikes that I've owned. My DRZ is way twitchier, as an example. They have the same horsepower, but the DRZ weighs a lot less. So it is less of a beginner-friendly bike because of that. But to answer the first question, is it manageable for a new rider? Other than the seat height and it being a little bit heavy, yes, it's very manageable. It's easy to ride on and off road. It's very versatile. It's an easy bike to work on. It's simple. It's reliable. The thing that sometimes these new rider videos forget is that new riders are also new often to owning motorcycles, right? So they're not mechanics either. So a new rider needs something that's easy to work on or doesn't require a lot of work. And the KLR is both of those things. It's one of the most reliable motorcycles of all time. So in terms of is it good for a brand new rider, can they handle the bike? It's an 8 out of 10, in my opinion. Just because seat height. If you're like 5'8", it's a whole different animal than for someone who's 6 foot tall. Only you can decide if that makes you uncomfortable or not. But I always advise, even if you think it's too big, to go test ride the thing if you can. It's the only way you're gonna know. At least go sit on it. Second consideration when deciding if a bike is a good first bike is how long will it last you? Will you outgrow it? And the KLR 650 is not a motorcycle that you're going to outgrow unless you just want something faster. It can do almost everything. You want to ride the Trans-America Trail? You can do it on a KLR. You wouldn't be the first person to do it. You want to log a ton of highway miles and tour all over the country, all over the world, wherever you live? You totally can do that on a KLR. You want to go explore back roads, putt around in the forest, you know, go on anything up to a single track trail, old logging roads, stuff like that, the KLR can do it. And with a good rider, it can even be ridden on single track. I've seen it done. It's just slow and heavy, you know, slower and heavier than most dual sports and less comfortable on the highway than most street bikes, but it does both things. It would be hard to outgrow the KLR because there's just not anything that it can't do unless you get bored with it. That's about the only thing that happens because it's not going to die. You're never going to kill the thing, and it'll go anywhere you want to go, so you just have to get bored with it. It's about the only way to get rid of one or end up wanting something other than a KLR. So in terms of, is it a bike that can last you a long time? Can it be your forever motorcycle? Can you buy it as your first bike and then ride it forever? Yeah, you totally can. Lots of people have, and lots of people buy KLRs, upgrade, and end up selling their upgrade and coming back to the KLR because it just works. It just does it all. It's just that good at everything and not spectacular at anything. It's an interestingly unique motorcycle. It's a big dual sport, but it really feels like an adventure bike, but it feels like a light adventure bike. It really just kind of hits a sweet spot that I really like. So very comfortable to do lots and lots of things on. Easy enough for a new rider to handle. It's just that seat height and the weight. You just have to know those two things going in. So in terms of is it a bike that can last you forever, it's a freaking 10, man. Like the KLR, there's nothing it can't do. There's nothing it can't do. And if you don't believe me, go ask the 30 years of owners out there. Go into any KLR owners group and they will tell you. So if you're a new rider switching from street to more off-road, or a brand new rider just getting your first bike or looking for your first bike, KLR is a great place to start. There's a million used ones out there you can get inexpensive. They're reliable, they last a long time, so you're gonna find one that's gonna be good for you even if it's older. The power delivery is smooth and easy to handle. It's an unintimidating bike that just happens to be a little bit tall and a little bit heavy. So overall, it's an 8 or 9 out of 10 in terms of, is it a good first motorcycle? Yeah, and that's my sort of quick and dirty, kind of off the top of my head. I didn't really do any notes on this one. Just a question I wanted to answer because I know some of you have had it. So if you have thoughts, if you're a KLR owner, please leave them in the comments. If you have questions, thinking about getting into one, leave them in the comments. I'd be happy to try to answer them. Not just me, but also the rest of the KLR community tends to pop in and try to answer those types of questions. So leave them in the comments. But for now, and as always, I just want to say thank you very much for watching. And please do not forget to be excellent to each other. Thank you.
Excellent!